Okay, everybody, welcome back. This to Math 1351, Chapter 13, Section 3, Pythagorean Theorem, Distance Formula, and Equations of a Circle. It sounds more complicated than it is. Alright, let's begin. Let's look at the first one. Remember, the Pythagorean Theorem is this: a squared plus b squared equals c squared. These are the lengths of a side of a right triangle. That's A, that's B, and the hypotenuse is C. Alright, let's look what this is talking about. So, here we have, what is x? X is on the side. So if we look at our picture here, that's up and down, so that's B. So we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So a is the bottom part, that's 4. 4 squared plus x squared equals 5 squared. 4 squared is 16. 5 squared is 25. Solve for x. Subtract 16 from both sides. So we have x squared. 25 minus 16 is 9. Square root both sides to get rid of the square. So x is equal square root of 9 is 3. So the answer is 3. Now we have to figure out the hypotenuse. So we have 12 squared plus 5 squared equals x squared. 12 squared is 144. 5 squared is 25. 144 plus 25 is 169. Square root that both sides, because when x, the square root and the square cancel, so that leaves us with x. Square root of 169 is 13. Okay. So we're going to figure out the height. Since, well, we have right here, we have a right triangle. Because if that's a right triangle, then that's a right triangle. So we have this much is 8. And then that's 17. That's the hypotenuse, because that's the longer side. The side opposite the right angle is the hypotenuse. So here's right angle, so that's hypotenuse. That's C. So we have 8 squared plus x squared equals 17 squared. 8 squared is 64. 17 squared is 289. Subtract 64 from both sides. So x squared equals 9 minus 4 is 5. 8 minus 6 is 2. 225. Square root both sides. The square root of 225 is 15. So these are our answers so far. Okay, this is an equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle is all the sides are the same length. So this is 8, this is 8, this is 8. And we got to figure out what the x is. So, since this is perpendicular, it's halfway, so that means this side is 4 units and that's 4 units. So our triangle we're looking at is 4 squared plus x squared equals 8 squared. Alright? So we have 16 plus x squared equals 64. Subtract 16 from both sides. X squared. 4, you can't do that, so we get a 5. 14 minus 6 is 8. 5 minus 1 is 4. So the square root of 48. If it was 49, it'd be easier. Oh, hold it. That's S. I'm sorry. I thought it was S. So these are all size S's. My bad. So that's S. That means this is S over 2. So it's S over 2 squared plus x squared equals s squared. Yeah, that makes it a little bit more to the point. So this would be s squared over 4 subtract s squared over 4 x squared, so s squared over 4, so this is 4s squared over 4 makes it 3s squared over 4. Square root both sides. Okay, the square root of s squared square root s comes out. The 3 stays inside there. The square root of 4 is 2. So this one is s square root of 3 over 2. You got any? I'm sorry, I thought that was an 8. My bad. Alright, now we have some three-dimensional figures. What they want us to do is find this length and the diagonal length. That length and the diagonal length of the box. Which means we have to do two things. We have to first find this diagonal. Because we know the height here, that's 3. We know this is 3 for this leg. Once we find this length here, then we have 2, and we can find the hypotenuse, because that's what that is. Right, so what do we know about these? Are all the sides are 3 units wide. So to find x, and since all of these are right angles, all these corners are right angles, we have 3 squared plus 3 squared equals s squared. Nine plus 9 s squared. 18 equals x squared. Square root both sides. So x is equal to, now we have to put it in there. Okay, what's 9 made up of? Oh, 18 made up of. 18 is made up of 9 times 2. 9 is 3 times 3. So this is 3 square root of 2. That's what x is, because we're supposed to simplify these. We can't leave it as square root of 18. So it's 3 square root of 2. But since we know that x is now, it's much easier if we use this number in the next calculation. So we know this length is 3. That length is square root of 18 squared equals to y squared, the diagonal there. The reason I went back to, because the square root and the square cancel, so 3 squared is 9, 18, because the square root and the square cancel. 18 plus 9 is 27, and square root. So what's 9 made up? Or 27 is made up of 9 times 3. 3 times 3. So it's 3 square root of 3. Because it has to be simplified. If it was like a test or something like that, I said, I'll just enter this in your calculator and you're done. But they want it in these units and everything, which is annoying. We'll do the same thing here again for this one. We know the long length is 25. That's the same. There's all four, these long ones 25. This one's 15. So we have 15 squared plus 25 squared equals x squared. Let me use, so we have 15 times 15 is 225, and 25 squared is 625. That equals x squared. 5 and 5 is 0. Carry the 1. 2, 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 6 and 2 is 850 equals x squared. Square root both sides. Okay, so here's what we have to do now. 850. What do we know about 850? We know that 5 goes in there because it ends in a 0. 5 goes into 8 once with 3 left over. 5 goes into 35 7 times. Again, ends in a 0, so we know that 5 goes in there. 5 goes into 17 3 times with 2 left over. 5 goes into 24 times. 34 breaks up into 2 times 17. Yeah, it doesn't go anywhere. So there's 2 5s, so it's 5 square root of 34. Because when you're dealing with square roots, you have to find 2 of a kind to take it out of the square root. Since we have a 5 and a 5, and 34 is a prime number, then the 5, since we have 2 5s, they come out. So that's the length of x. But again, when I do this to find y, I'm going to use the easier one. I'm going to use the square root of 850 squared plus this length here, which is 9 squared, equals y squared. Sorry. So 850 breaks out into 5 times 170. 5 goes in, because it ends in a 0. 5 means 5 goes in there. 5 goes into 17 3 times. with 2 left over. 5 goes into 20 4 times. So there's 2 5s. So square root of 850 squared is 850. 9 squared is 81. So y squared is equal to 931. So 931. Let's see what numbers go into it. So 2 doesn't work. 3 no. 4 5 6 7. Let's try 7. 7 goes to 9 once with 2 left over. 7 goes into 23 7 times with 2 left over. 7 goes into 21 3 times. We need 2. Let's try 7 again. 7 goes into 17 once, or twice with 14, so it's 3. 7 goes to 9 once with 2 left over. 7 goes to 23. 7. Oh, 3 times. That's 3 times. I'm sorry. Not 7. With 2 leftovers. 21. It's 133. Okay. 7 goes into 13 once with 6. 7 goes into 63. 9. Okay, so it's, when I square root both sides, it's 7 square root of 19. 5 square root of 84. 7 square root of 19. That's the hardest part, is when you have to break these large numbers down to their component parts. And there's nothing I can do about that, but that's what the software was looking for. Okay, now, what is the longest line segment that can be drawn in the interior of a right rectangular prism? A right rectangular prism. That's what that looks like. That's 13 centimeters long, 12 centimeters wide, and 11 centimeters high. Okay, so let's see. We have 3 sides that could work here. We're looking for the longest segment that can be drawn in the interior of this thing. So if we use that back side, it's 11 by 13. If we use the bottom, that's 12 by 13. But this side here, the hypotenuse, has to be longer than 11 or 12. So as I'm saying, that's the back side. That diagonal is going to be smaller than if I use the bottom part, because this length is 12 and that's 11, so that one's not the biggest. But this side here, hypotenuse, has to be bigger than the other 2 sides. So our first step is, let's find the hypotenuse. So we have to find 11 squared plus 12 squared equals x squared. That's what we're looking for here. Because then from there, we could find the diagonal. So So 121, 144 equals x squared. 265 equals x squared. Square root both sides, so x is equal to the square root of 265. Alright, so we know that since it's not asking for that part, I'm just looking for that. Let's find this. It's 13 by that, so we have square root of 265, that's this side, squared, plus 13 squared. Ooh, no, that's the hypotenuse. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Equals the hypotenuse, or let's call that y squared. So the square root of 265 squared is 265, because the square root and the square cancel. 13 squared is 169. 265 plus 169, 12, 13, 434, and square root both sides. Now let's see. 434. We know it ends in a 4, so let's see if 2 goes in there. 2 goes in there twice. 2 goes in there once with 1 left over. 2 goes in a 14 17 times. What times what gives me a 7? That's a prime number. So the answer is square root of 434. And since we're looking at hypotenuse, it's centimeters. Of course, each of these have to be in centimeter lengths. Ooh, that's another brain buster. Alright, I promise to get easier from here. That was a long one. Alright, next one. This one says a 13-foot ladder is leaned against the wall, and the wall is perpendicular to the ground. Okay, so there's a wall, and a 13-foot ladder is leaned against it. That's 13 feet. And the base of the ladder is 9 feet. Yeah, so we know here the units are going to have to be feet, because that's what we're looking at. Each side are feet. The question is asking is how high above the ground is the ladder? So we're looking for this. So we're looking for x squared plus 9 squared equals 13 squared. X squared plus 81 equals 169. Subtract 81. X squared 8 square root both sides, so let's see, we have 88. We know that's 8 times 11. 11 is a prime number, so that stays there. This is made up of 4 times 2, 2 times 2. There's 2 of a kind, so it comes out. 2 times 11, that stays inside there, 22. So it's 2 radical 22 in feet. sure everything follows that. Oh, hit pause. All right. A company wants to lay a string of buoys across a lake. Find the length of the lake. To find the length of the lake, they made it given measures. Find the length of the lake. They want to know how wide the lake is. Here's a right triangle. So that's the hypotenuse. This is C. So we have 24 squared plus x squared, that's x, equals 37 squared. Let's see, 24 times 24 is 576 plus x squared, and 37 times 37 equals 1369. Yeah. Subtract 576 from both sides. So we have x squared equals 9 minus 6 is 3. 16 minus 7 is 9. 12 minus 5 is 7. Square root both sides. So x is equal to so this is round to the nearest, so it wants us to do the calculation. So it wants us to do the square root. The square root of 793 is 28.16026. So it says round to the nearest tenth, so the first decimal. So x is equal to 28. Since that's 6, that means I round that one up, so it's 0.2. 28.2 feet. Let's go to the next one. This one's pretty interesting. I looked at this earlier. Use the following figure to prove the Pythagorean theorem by first proving that the quadrilateral with side C is a square. We have to first prove that's a square. Then compute the area of the square with sides A plus B. The reason it's A plus B is because where that internal square represents, we have to break those two sides up. We'll prove this, the areas of the two sides A plus B in two ways: as A plus B squared and as the sum of the area of the four triangles. These triangles. Okay, so the first thing we have to do, since each side is 90 degrees, so we have to first prove this is a square. The only thing we know is each side is the same length. Well, that automatically proves that it's a square. That's by definition what a square is. So, the first one, since each of the angles are 9 equal sides, so it's A. Because each side is the same length, that means all the angles have to be 90. Check. Then, the area of the square using side length of A plus B so we have, let's see this, the area of the square using the length of A plus B, so we have A plus B times A plus B. That's the same thing as a plus b squared. So let's look at this. Let's do the foiling. A times a is a squared. A times b is ab. B times a is b times a times b is commutativity, and then b times b is b squared. So it's a squared. We have two of these, so it's 2ab. So that one is a squared. That's this one. So that's a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. The area of the square as the sum of the sides of the four triangles as square with side C is the area of the square as the sum of the sides. So what we have, each of these 1/2 AB. That's what it's looking at here. Is since this is if we look at a square here, this side here is A, and this side here is B. The area of that is A times B. But that's the triangle of it. So that's half of it. So that's 1/2 AB. And there's 4 of those here. Okay. But it has to be the same thing as that. We're returning to equal. So we're looking at 4 of the 1/2 A times B's plus C squared. That has to equal, let's see, 4 times, that cancels to be a 2, 2ab plus c squared. So that's that one. There's 4 and 2 cancel, plus c, so it's 2ab plus c squared. Since the two areas are the same figure, they must be equal. So let's set them equal to each other. Let's do that down here. So we have a squared plus 2ab plus b squared equals 2ab plus c squared. The 2ab's cancel. Since two areas are the same figure, they must be equal. So this must be equal to this. Because the end result is going to be a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And that's what we're looking for here. So what they have in common is the 2ab. And so we have here a squared plus b squared. That's this one. That goes here. The blank term will cancel. That's the 2ab term. That's going to cancel. That's going to leave us with a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's a proof. For each of the following pairs of points, find the length AB. In other words, find the distance between them. The distance formula is x2 minus x1 squared, y2 minus y1 squared. Where each point is made up of an x and a y. So x1, y1 is the first point. x2, y2 is the second point. Actually, now this whole formula here comes from the Pythagorean Theorem. It started off as d squared equals x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. This is the distance horizontally. This is the distance vertically. This is the distance between those two endpoints. It's a right triangle. So it all started with the Pythagorean Theorem. So see the first one. We have the first point. This is x1, y1, x2, y2. So we have x2 is 0, x1 is 0, squared. y2 is 5, minus y1 is 1. 0 minus 0 is 0, that does anything. 5 minus 1 is 4. We know that the square and the square root cancel, so that's 4. Or I can go 4 squared is 16, square root of 16 is 4. So that's 4. The next one. This is A. This is B. So again, this is x2 is 36 minus 0 and 0 minus 15, those are the y's. So 36 minus 0 is 36. 0 minus 15 is negative 15 squared. And that's the beautiful thing, because when you square a negative number, it becomes positive. So 36 squared is 1,296. We did that earlier. 15 squared is 225. We did that earlier. Add those together, we get 1521. And put that in the calculator, we get 39. Yep, so if you put it in the calculator and it gives you a solid number, that's it. It's only when it gives you a decimal that you have to do it, like the next one. The last one. So we have x2 is negative 10 minus a negative 3 squared, negative 3 minus 16 squared, negative and negative makes it a positive. So negative 10 plus 3 is a negative 7. Negative 3 minus 16 is negative 19. That's 18, I'm sorry. 18. Negative 18 minus 3 is negative 21. So negative 7 squared is positive 49. Negative 21 squared is 221. (49 plus 221) that's 10, 7, 270. Let me put that in the calculator so I can give you a solid number. So let's see, what does 270? No, it's 441. Yeah, that's 441. So it should give me 490. I'm sorry. Yeah, 21 times 21 is 441. 441 plus 49 is 490. That's 49 times 10, because there's 0. 49 is made up of 7 times 7. So the answer here, since there's two 7s, is 7 square root of 10. I'm sorry about that. 21 times 21 is 441. Okay. The equation of a circle is, okay, it all started with this formula. This called c squared equals a squared plus b squared. The distance formula, which we just saw, is the same thing. But now, with this equaled a right angle. But if you think about what is a circle? A circle is an infinite number of points that are all the same distance away from a center point. If we connect all these, we get a circle. These same distances are the hypotenuse. We call those the radius. So the distance between this point and this point is the distance from the center to the circle. So that's the radius. The center of the circle never changes. It's fixed. The only thing that changes are these outer points. That's why we have x minus h, because the center point is the point h, k. That's the center. So the x value stays the same, doesn't move left or right. K value, so the x's of the other guys change. So there's your equation of a circle. So now, let's look at the first one. If the center is at negative 7, 4 and the radius is 10, let's plug them in there. So x minus h, y minus k. Remember, the center is at h, k. So r is 10, negative, positive 10, because radius can never be negative. X minus negative 7 y minus 4. So it's 100 equals negative makes it a positive, y minus 4. So x plus 7, y minus 4, it's B. Let's look at the second one. The radius is square root of 2 squared. X minus a negative 4 squared. Y minus 8 squared. Square root and square cancel, so it's 2. Negatives cancel, so it's x plus 4 squared. Y minus 8 squared. So it can't be these middle two, it has to be the top and bottom. X plus 4, y minus 8, it's D. Alright, let's just work backwards now. Remember, radius squared equals x minus h squared, y minus k squared. So let's look at the first one. We have 121 equals x squared plus y squared. The center. Well, there's h is not there. It's not there, so it's 0. H is 0. Same thing with the y. The k is 0. Since there's no, if it was y minus 0, it'd just be y squared. X minus 0 is just x squared. So the center is at 0, 0. Now, here, the radius squared, r squared is equal to 121. To find r, we have to square root both sides. Square root of 121 is 11. That's the first one. Let's look at the next one. We have 64 equals x minus 10 squared plus y minus 3 squared. So the r squared is 64, square root both sides. Square root of 64 is 8, so the radius is 8 in the center. So it's x minus h is 10, y minus k is 3. So it's at 10, 3. The next one, we have 14 equals x plus 7 squared, y minus 2 squared. R squared equals 14, square root both sides. R equals square root of 14. So 14 is made up of 2 times 7, so I can't go any further, so it's square root of 14. Now, the center is supposed to be x minus. So since this is a plus, that means the h must be negative 7, because it has to be x minus. Y minus So basically, it's whatever you have here is the opposite of whatever that number is. If that's negative 2, the answer is 2. If it's positive 7, negative 7. And the last one. We have 49 equals x squared plus y plus 1 squared. Remember, that's the number there. So it's r squared equals 49. Square root both sides. R equals 7. The center. This doesn't have anything plus or minus, so it's 0. It's a positive 1, so the answer is negative 1. So it's at 0, negative 1. That's that one. Almost done. Okay. The sides of a right triangle have the length 3, 4, 5 centimeters, respectively. Show that the lengths of the sides of every similar triangle satisfy the Pythagorean theorem. Any similar angle will have the sides of length for the first one. Okay, this one. It has to be multiples, so 3k, 4k, 5k. So it's 3k, 4k, 5k. Because this is what you call a 3, 4, 5 triangle. This is 3, this is 4, and that's 5. So any multiple of those, 3k, 4k, 5k. So it's 3k, 4k, 5k. And if you square them, same thing. You can't add them. You can't. So it has to be multiples of them. So it's 3k squared, 4k squared, and then 5k squared. And then the last one, yeah, that's what we have right here, is equivalent to 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. It's 3, 4, 5 triangle, Pythagorean theorem. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. Find the equation of the circle with the given center and radius. Remember, x minus h squared, y minus k squared. And whenever I give you a center, it's hk. So the radius is square root of 14, so that's squared. X minus h, h is 0. Y minus k, k is also 0. So square root of 14 squared is 14. X minus 0 is just x, so it's x squared. Y minus 0 is y squared. So it's x squared plus y squared equals 14. That's in standard form. This is standard form. Okay, the radius is 5. So we have 5 squared x minus negative 7 squared y minus negative 4 squared. 5 squared is 25. The two negatives become a positive. The two negatives become a positive. So it's x plus 7 squared plus y plus 4 squared equals 25. Give the center and radius of each circle. Remember, the formula is r squared equals x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. And the center is hk. It's the remember, whatever it's going to be the opposite sign. So here, for this person, the center is at 2, negative 2. Because the only way that could be a negative inside there is if k is negative 2. So if it's a negative 2, negative makes it positive. So, and that's r squared. So if r squared is 49, square root both sides, r is 7. It doesn't have any x and y's. Let's look at this one. We have 5x squared plus 5y squared equals 25. Our formula does not have any coefficients. So let's look at this. We can factor out a 5. Get rid of this 5 because we can't have it on that side, so we divide both sides by 5. So now we have x squared plus y squared equals 5. There's no plus or minus inside there, so it's at 0, 0. And we're supposed to be r squared equals x minus h squared plus y minus k squared. If there's no plus or minus, that means h and k are both 0. Now, if r squared equals 5, then r is equal to the square root of 5. Alright, that should do it for everybody. Good luck.